We're talking moving Africa today in terms of getting economies up and going, and that ability is dependent on infrastructure that's supportive of the logistical element of it all. Roads are a critical area of focus, and in Kenya we've got government's plan to retain Nairobi as East Africa's business hub, riding on development and maintenance within that arena. What's the status of roads in Kenya right now?
Well, the status of roads in Nairobi right now is not very good, but there's a lot of plans which are being made by the government. Several roads have been earmarked for expansion, and in another 1 or 2 years, Nairobi will be very, very different in terms of road infrastructure.
Of course, this is part of Kenya's renowned Vision 2030, and one of the primary aims is to deal with traffic levels, with traffic congestion in the country. It's a major problem that keeps the economy standing still. It costs time, it costs money. Can you paint a picture for us in terms of the scenario faced in Nairobi and just how long the average person sits in traffic on a daily basis, let's say from home to work?
Well, I can cite, for example, one of the major roads which is now under construction. Before the construction was started, somebody was coming from about 45 kilometers away on Thika, coming to Nairobi. Ordinarily used to take about 3 hours. And the superhighway now has been designed, it is under construction, and the aim is to ensure that somebody will travel in about 25 minutes. The other major problem is when you're coming from our international airport, Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. I had a friend who had a very bad experience. He traveled all the way from Dubai. He came to Nairobi in 5 hours, and he wanted to travel only about 20 kilometers, and he took 4 hours to get to his house.
So that's clearly illustrating the kind of problem that we're facing out there, you know, that it takes the time to fly from Dubai to Kenya, time to travel 20 kilometers on that end. So the incentive certainly there. We know what the motivation is for improving that road scenario. What are some of the challenges faced in actually getting things on track?
Well, okay, capital is one big problem because it has to be raised by the government, which is also trying to help many other sectors, the health, the most important sectors. But the government appears to be very, very determined to an extent that they have now budgeted quite a big chunk of their budgets to development of the road infrastructure. And they are also floating bonds, infrastructure bonds, without being taxed. And these have become very attractive, and therefore they are raising the taxes.
Without the onus being just on government, I mean, they've seemed to extended, you know, those funding partnerships even further. I mean, we've heard of Kenya-China governments partnering in road construction. In fact, a 8.5 billion shilling mega road construction project that's currently underway is being co-founded, and majority of that funded by the Chinese government as well.
Yes, it is called the bypass road, trying to ensure that trucks which are traveling through Nairobi, going maybe towards Uganda and elsewhere, are not coming into the city. That road is basically complete now, and we are seeing lowering levels of traffic jam in Kenya. The Chinese have been very useful, and they are really coming to support us in a big way. And that is one of the projects they have earmarked. And there is still another project which they have earmarked, and that is the Southern Bypass. The other one was Eastern Bypass. Now we have the Southern Bypass, which I believe maybe in another 2 or 3 months should be starting.
So that the role, that local government is playing, and then the kind of partnerships we're seeing with international governments or governments internationally as well. What about private investment, Mwangi? What needs to be done to spur that along? What do you see being the catalyst to get private investment into infrastructure development?
Well, as I mentioned, I think one of them is floating the infrastructure bonds. There's a lot of money with the people privately. Our banks are holding a lot of money. And if they are given some incentive, they will actually be able to contribute to the development of the road infrastructure. It is an area whereby businessmen can make a lot of money, actually, because it gives a lot of profit. As I said, the infrastructure bonds are not going to be taxed. The interest that they get will not be taxed. Yeah. Right now, there's a bond which is ongoing, and it is attracting a 12% interest without any interest on the interest earned.
Mwangi, just very briefly, road transport is the predominant mode of transport. It carries about 93% of all cargo and passenger traffic in the country. Are we seeing any shifts in terms of mode of transport that is being used? So other support infrastructure that's starting to be developed in tandem so that dependence is not so much on road capacity itself?
Yes, there has been some move on that area. The Kenya government is implementing the railway project. For 100 years or more, there has not been any expansion on the railway sector. But now the government has given a budget whereby there will be a standard gauge railway, which is going now to be started very soon. Recently also there was a study, what we call of mass rapid transit system within Nairobi, where it looked at 9 corridors, and the feasibility study has already been complete, and we are going to see corridors being improved so that the bus rapid transit system and the light rail transport system are going to be introduced in Nairobi within maybe another 3 to 4 years.
Well, development certainly that we'll be keeping an eye on. Mwangi, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. Mwangi Matu is chairman of the Road Infrastructure Board at the Kenya Private Sector Alliance.